Hello, once again, everybody. I am Eric J. Olson with Array Digital, and we are live interviewing a managing partner for our podcast named the Managing Partners Podcast. That podcast is about interviewing America's top managing partners to find out what they're doing to grow their law firms and to keep their case pipeline full. And today I have Patricia Baxter. Hey, Tricia.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us. I love the background color. It's kind of like mine, dark colors on the walls.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. Got to do it with these Zoom and online appearances these
You got
days.
to do something, that's for
Yeah.
sure. All right. Well, let me tell the audience about you. Tricia is the managing partner for the Northeast office of Morgan and Akins. She has written 2 best-selling books, one of which is about her general liability litigation philosophy and how she helps her clients close cases quicker. Can you show that again?
Yeah, sure. I always come prepared. This is my book. I wrote it really after I do a lot of LinkedIn posts, and I wrote it after I start to see some themes. And it's been one of the coolest things. You want to talk about a great marketing angle? Write a book.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So what? Okay. So how long had you practiced before you started to get the idea? I need to write a book, and then how long from that moment until it was actually published?
So I have been practicing 23 years. I was squarely in the traditional marketing, lunches, dinners, drinks, conferences for the first 22 years, I think, or maybe 21 years. And then I got on LinkedIn and I really took a social media marketing approach. I went all in. And through that process, I really just opened my mind up to different marketing options. A book was one of them. I actually wrote a book beforehand with 19 other female lawyers. It was called Networked, and it was about our experience networking in COVID. And from that, I never would have thought to write a book, but somebody in that group said, we should write a book about this group. And after we did that, and I had such wonderful experience with the reaction to that, I started to have this seed of an idea to write a more personal, branded, professional book, I should say. And then I started soup to nuts. It probably took me maybe 5 months from idea to publish. But I had the help of other people. I had some editors and copywriters help me in that process. So it took twice as long. I originally was like, oh, it'll take me about 6 weeks. And then it never happens that way. So that's how that happened.
That's a quick turnaround in creating books. So 2 in the last roughly year and a half.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, the first one was just a chapter, so it was much easier. It was, maybe 2,000 words, and you're doing it in a group, so you can divide up. This one was me, and it was a lot more vulnerable. You're really putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
You don't have shade. You don't have anyone else to cover. And I'm so happy and proud of it. I get more responses from this book because it's authentically my brand. It's what I believe in. I don't have to sell it. And I can just show up, and I do a lot of talking around the book. So if anybody is thinking of doing it, I highly, highly recommend it.
Yep, I will second that. So I really like what you did with the book. Let me bring it back on the screen here. So, oops, I scrolled down a little bit. So here it is on Amazon. It's only $8.99, and that's Amazon Prime. Free shipping. Love it.
Yep. Free on Kindle too. You have Kindle Unlimited. So if you are an e-reader, there you go.
There you go. There you go. So I have a similar experience. The book behind me here is mine. It's called $1 Million Journey. Now, that's the entrepreneurial journey that I've taken up to the first $1 million in revenue for us. So that ended, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, is where that one stops. And it was a storytelling book, just for other entrepreneurs. But like you, I'm already thinking about a second book that has a definite tie-in to the business. So actually, can you tell me and the audience how you're using this book to improve the marketing for your law firm?
So the book kind of sells itself. I have sent it out to a lot of existing clients. I've gone into Zoom webinars sort of thing to have book club kind of discussions about them. That's really a great way just to solidify your current relationships. But then I do a lot of LinkedIn promotion. I've done some direct email promotion with the book. And
Hmm.
at the end of the book, especially the e-reader, you have a link to my calendar to schedule a call with me to really talk about the processes. So it's really been a combination of the LinkedIn post, which really grows organically, the direct mail, which has an amazing open rate. I think I have like a 35% open rate, which I don't know if I'm told that's pretty good.
That's good.
And yeah, so it's those two combinations. And then I had word of mouth. Like I had somebody email me that said, "Oh, your book was the discussion on Clubhouse." And there was a woman on there who is my target client who had read the book and pretty much held it up,
Yep.
figuratively speaking, of course, and said, everybody needs to read this. And what great marketing is that to have your ideal client pushing your book on everybody else. So I actually had several people from that Clubhouse meeting reach out to me and say, I'd love for you to come speak. And it's just showing up to see where it takes you. It's really incredible.
It is incredible. Kevin Daisy comments, congrats on the book. I
Thanks,
agree.
Kevin.
Yep. It's not easy to do. So that is great. But yeah, I think from a marketing perspective, having a book where you take as much knowledge as makes sense to put into a book, provide the value to prospective clients and to clients, right? But then it's like a leave behind. So in marketing terms, especially like traditional marketing and sales, you want to have a leave behind, something that you leave behind when you go do a sales call at a client's office, right? It's like a business card or a flyer or a book, right? Yeah. So imagine like every time you get a prospective client, fill out your web form, call you, you get their address and you send them the book. Like that's incredible. Have you done that as well? Like
Oh
all
yeah.
prospective clients?
I literally had a call with a new client. She wasn't a client yet, about 6 months ago, and her frustrations, the frustrations she was voicing about her current litigation management were in my book.
No, that's great.
So I was like, "Can I send you my book? This is not a
Yeah.
promotion, but
Yeah.
you got to read this." And she did, and she was like, "I need all of my people to read this book." And we got a case from her 6 weeks later.
That's
Whether the
awesome.
book having to do with it, who knows? But to be able to have that 1-2 punch, like authentically, like I'm not selling her. This is an answer to what she was already struggling with
That's
and
right.
her frustrations. And I got to have a call with her and back it up with something I'd already written on that. So
Yeah.
she knew I understood what her frustrations and problems were from the get go. The book was just a way to demonstrate that. It was beautiful.
No, it's great. It's great. Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of times when I speak with entrepreneurs, and again, my book is about being an entrepreneur and growing the business. I'll either say it or I'll think it. That's in the book.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
already wrote about that. I got that reduced to writing. So,
Yeah.
well, hey, tell us a little bit more about your firm. How long has the firm been around? Did you found it? Size, all those things. Where are you located, et cetera?
Yeah, so I did not find it. It's been around for about 15 years. I came aboard about 6, 7 years ago, and I opened up the Northeast office. It was primarily a Southeastern regional firm. Nashville is our base, which is an awesome base to have because Nashville rocks, literally. And so now we have 8 offices. We're in 10 states, I believe. Um, uh, Northeast, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and then we are getting into Maryland, and then we have the southern states. But mostly civil defense work, a lot of GL, workers' comp, construction, really the gamut on the defense side of personal injury. And like I said, I've been doing it for about 7 years, and I think we have now up to 40 attorneys
Good for you.
and growing. So I'm really, really happy about it. We really weathered COVID fairly well. We took a hit like everybody else, but we weathered. We were in the black the whole time. We never laid anybody off. We never cut salaries. I was super proud about that. And I really like our team. We have good people, good culture. I'm so proud of this firm. I'm going to say a young culture. I'm 48, and my partner in Nashville, I think he's maybe 47. And I think that makes the difference. It's really cool to have people that care about people at the top. I've been at several law firms where that wasn't the case, and it's nice to be where I'm at. So
Very nice. That's a nice size operation you have for sure.
yeah.
You guys have
Yeah,
done very
I
well.
like it. Yeah, we just added an Atlanta person. We've always had an Atlanta office, but we just added one with a book of business, and there's a lot of cross marketing going on, a lot of collaboration, which I've also not always had. There's always been some competitiveness, but this firm is very different, and it's just really refreshing.
Good for you. That's super fantastic. That's great. Okay, we talked about the book, but besides the book, what are some other ways that you go about getting new clients?
So I am probably at this point 90% social
Wow.
media marketing. I used to travel. COVID stopped that. So it is social media marketing. It's webinar
Yep.
appearances. That is 90% of what I'm doing. There are other people in my office that are doing traditional conferences and lunches and dinner.
Yep.
It works for them. I have a woman, a partner of mine, who we have a podcast, much I think like yours,
Very
that
nice.
she brings on potential leads, and then they have a dialogue about whatever they're having a dialogue about, and she's gotten business from that, and she loves it. So we run the gamut. Me personally, I love social media. It doesn't, once you get into the groove of it, it doesn't take a lot of time. And if you show up authentically and have a message that your ideal client can get
Yeah.
value from, it's a win-win across the board. So that's honestly what I do most.
So I think it's great as well. I love social media. It does require, I would say, a significant investment in time and usually money. It's not something that you can just post, once a week and put a check in the check box. It requires quite a bit. So I'm interested. LinkedIn for you is the platform. How much LinkedIn are you doing?
Well, I'll say now it's very different than what I was doing in the beginning. I've been doing it for 2 years now. I have a system, I have admins that help me, but now at this point in time, it doesn't take a lot to come up with what ideas and what to post. I've been doing it. I see it everywhere. So the content creation for me is relatively easy. I see it in my conversations with my associates, with my partners, with my clients. I see it in my cases. I see it everywhere. So I actually have the next month of content scheduled
Oh,
already,
wow.
and I have a scheduler, and I have an admin that makes sure it goes on correctly. So I
Yep.
usually sit down once or twice a month, 3 or 4 hours, write things. I repurpose old stuff. So if I know something works
Yep.
from a year ago, I'll just throw it right back up. Nothing new to write. It's a whole new audience by the time they see that. So there are definitely shortcuts. I think in the beginning, you're right. It takes some time. It takes some time to get used to putting yourself out there, especially as lawyers, especially as managing partners, when we have this concept of how we're being perceived. But if we can get through that and you can show up authentically, it actually gets much easier. I post like on Saturdays sometimes, and I'm not even on LinkedIn. I'm not even on there. And I'm
Mhm.
speaking to people while I'm having breakfast with my family. It's a beautiful, beautiful concept. So I think you get started, you recognize that there's a learning curve. It may be a little bit of a time suckage at first, but if you can last 6 months, it gets so much easier. 3 to maybe 8 hours a month you would dedicate to doing something like that.
Are you posting daily?
I do about 4 days a week, 4 to 5. I play with it. At one point, I was doing 5 to 7, but the algorithm has changed a little
Hmm.
bit that it's actually rewarding less a week. So I focus on certain days, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and maybe a Saturday, maybe a Sunday is kind of my routine time.
And how about some best practices for your LinkedIn posts? As an example, uh, I kind of like you. Well, it sounds kind of like you. I post more than I read on LinkedIn.
Me too.
But I certainly seen the trends, and it seems like the posts that are at the highest in the feed are the ones where like every sentence is a paragraph, right? And then there's hashtags. What have you learned about that, and how has that changed over time? And more importantly, what have you learned and what's working now for you?
So yeah, I think you're talking about the slippery script writing, which is the
Yeah.
one sentence. It's easier to read. That's why people do it.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with it. That's how I write it. But I think the overall thing that I've learned is to show up as myself. And that's maybe cliche these days, talking about authenticity, but I share my struggles. I share stories from my past that, things that didn't work out for me and the lessons that I learned from that. When I share stories actually
Hmm.
told in a story format, they crush it versus the posts that are telling people what to do or giving advice. It is palpable difference. So I've started writing more stories, or at least making sure that my weekly posts have at least one story in them. It also shows to your prospective clients that you as a lawyer can tell a story.
Yeah.
We're, especially as the litigation side, we're often needing to catch someone's attention, a jury, a mediator, the opposing counsel. And stories are such a great way to do it. And if you can tell a story, you grab them in ways that reciting facts just can't. So I think it's a good practice to get into anyway. But that's the thing. Slippery slope or slippery screenwriting is the one sentence, which I know annoys some people. I love it. It
Yeah.
works. And then telling stories, and then being open and authentic and vulnerable. The posts that I've done that, the more have been the ones that have gone viral. And I'll say, like, my biggest one that I got, I think, over 200,000 views was when I talked about how I was a
Wow.
micromanager. I was a micromanager at a point in my career until I let it go a couple of years ago. And I walked through that process. And I think so many people resonated with working for a micromanager and me admitting to the fact that, yes, I was a micromanager,
Yeah.
that it was that authenticity. They were like, I hate working for a micromanager. I see this. And it just resonated with them. So that's my advice, as long-winded as that may be.
No, that was great. Okay, so what's interesting about that last part about the post that did 200,000 views about you being a micromanager? That's not you promoting your service.
Nope. I do maybe the 4 to 5 a week. I have one or two that are branded. And then I have stories of my career, my family. It's showing my personal side because people do business with people they like. And
Yeah.
that is tried and true. That's one of those adages that has been the truth since, I think, the dawn of time, maybe. But and so it's not lost on me that if I can connect with somebody on a personal level over a personal issue, and then they happen to see one of my branded posts and it fits for them, they'll want to work with me too. It is not all business for me on LinkedIn. It never
That's good.
has been. I wouldn't go into a cocktail hour and only talk about business. I'd want to, how's your family doing? How's this, that's, and that. You want to find some commonality. So put yourself out there on a personal level. I talk about my 9-year-old daughter all the time, and I have no apologies about it. And it resonates. The parenting aspect resonates with people. And I think it's really powerful.
And then, yeah, I would imagine also the topic of being a working parent, right? And then you have obviously your day job and not an insignificant day job. It's difficult to balance those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of those questions. I do
Yep.
post about that sometimes. But yeah, it's really what comes to mind, but it's an equal number of, personal branded post and then the personal side. I think they're
Excellent.
equally important.
Very cool. That's awesome. That was really, really helpful. As far as the firm, what are your growth plans for the next couple of years, say 2 to 5 years?
Well, so 2 years ago, I implemented a 5-year plan because have you ever read Grant Cardone, 10X? Have you ever
Oh,
read
yeah.
him?
Yes,
So I put a
absolutely.
10X plan in, and I'm a little behind schedule because COVID did hit, but that's my plan. I planned a 10X revenue. I've now in 3 years. So it made me think bigger. It made me think more strategically. That's really where I did start to not micromanage because I'm like, I cannot control this and let it grow at the same time. I have to trust other people. So, and through that process, it really is, I've not given away, but I have people and partners in my team that take care of his existing clients with some oversight by me, but they're really the more of the relationship people at this point.
Yeah.
So that, and my goal is to bring in new business.
Yeah.
That really is, I spend less time on existing clients because I know they're well taken care of. and I focus on new business, and it's a certain kind. I need 2 or 3 leads to land a year at a 7-figure mark for me to get
Wow.
to my goal. And then coupled with, we look at laterals, we look at expanding existing business. So there's a whole plan, but it started with Grant, and I love his big thinking ideas. If anyone's looking to grow, that's, I think, a great way to start.
We are big Grant Cardone fans here. Yep.
Yep.
I just got done listening to the 10X rule for the second time about 2 weeks ago. Sell or be sold is another good one. I think that's better, actually. But it was good to listen to 10X again. And it just gets you pumped up that, like, and some of these videos that are out there, it's just crazy. There was a little tangent here, but there was a video that I watched of him recently where he was talking to the top salespeople at I believe it was a $2 billion a year company. And he polled them to said, hey, if you really crushed it, how much could you make a year? And they said, about $400,000 if we just crush it. He goes, you need to stop thinking about 400,000 and start thinking about $4 million. What's it going to take to do that?
Yeah.
This is for each one of the
Oh my
salespeople.
God. That resonates with me. That's exactly what I thought when I was like, I don't bill as much anymore because I'm not I'm not focused on earning 300 to 400,000 a year. I'm focused on getting to 30 million a year.
That's right.
How do I get to 30 million? And that takes a different mindset. And he's brilliant. I have to check out that book. I've only ever read 10X. I did start to watch the Billionaire Show he was on.
Fantastic.
I haven't finished it yet though. So, but I love him. I think he's just, his energy is just, it's palpable. So,
So as a digital marketing agency owner, you'll appreciate, well, I appreciated what he built because it has to do with our industry. And just how far into it are you? About halfway or so?
No, it was three episodes because then it stopped for a time, and I haven't picked it up again. So
I had to subscribe to Discovery Plus for like a month in order to So that's because I was trying to watch it on Amazon Prime. Only the first 3 episodes were there, so Discovery Plus will give you the rest of them. But it's worth it, especially if you like 10X rule. It's quite impressive to see him actually implement these things, and the thing that he builds is what we're going to do here next at a radio.
Really?
Show. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have to go back and check out the rest of that show then. I thought it was so interesting. He boots on the ground. He's worth, I don't know, billions. I don't know. And he's down there just crushing it and hustling. And I'm like, that's beautiful.
Yeah. He sold his jet. I saw that this morning. That's a big deal. So I'm wondering what he's going to get next.
Oh my gosh. Probably something bigger, of course.
It's going to be a huge one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's great. That's really impressive. So yeah, interestingly, I looked at our financials from about 4 years ago, and we have 10x'd our revenue since then, which was, I did not realize that until I did the analysis. So it is absolutely doable. It gets harder as the numbers get bigger. I think it gets harder. That's my assumption, but that's definitely what I want to do as well. So I love everything you're talking about. That's fantastic.
Well, congrats. That's awesome. You did it and you didn't even know you did it.
I did not even know. Yeah. So imagine the power of wanting that as a goal, right? And then having to work backwards. So you're doing that. You came up with a 5-year plan and you're executing it, and you know exactly what you need, right? You need 2 clients that are 7 figures and you're good.
Yeah. It's not a lot. I don't, it's not a lot. So I even work backwards from there. So if I'm going to land 2 clients a year, how many people do I need to figuratively touch to get that result? And we know those numbers. So how do I touch that many people? It's just working backwards, like you said, which sounds so simple, but until I saw it, I was like, okay, it's like a light bulb moment for me.
And, the thing is, like in business, as a managing partner and I run the company here, we like to think that we have our pulse on the numbers and we can do all this fancy math to figure all that out. But it really, in the end of the day, it's almost a gut check, right? Like, you could have a lot of data that supports you and the old financials and but those projections are all gut checks. You just have to put some plan in place and execute and then tweak. Because if you wait for the perfect plan with the perfect data, you'll never do anything.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tweaking and expect the tweaking. Expect
Yep.
that you're going to have to change course and direction. You're going to have to experiment a lot to what works. You're going to have a lot of failure on the process. But through that failure, your processes and systems in the marketing front and growth front get better and better.
Yeah.
I started out with one plan 2 years ago on LinkedIn, and it's completely different now.
Yeah.
And it's just part of the journey. So it is very cool.
Well, it's quite impressive what you've done. We are definitely going along. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been a very interesting conversation. If someone would like to reach out to you or connect with you on a place like LinkedIn, is there a way that they could do that?
Yes, I have the URL, which I know is popping up on your screen right now. But for those listening at home, just type in Patricia Baxter in the search bar. You will find me. I think I'm one of the top 3 searches on that. So definitely reach out, connect with me. I would love to see you in my feed.
That's awesome. All right, everybody. Go check out Patricia on LinkedIn. And if you are looking for more episodes like this where we interview America's top managing partners, you can go to arraylaw.com/podcast. And if you are looking to spice up your digital marketing for your law firm, check out my company, Array Digital, at arraylaw.com. We specialize in websites, SEO, online ads, and social media. Not quite the social media that Tricia's got going on with LinkedIn. That's next. That's a hint about what happens in Undercover Billionaire, but we can help you. All right. Thanks so much. Hang on.